Hi guys, and welcome to the November update. It's the 24th at the moment, but I don't know when I'm actually going to be able to put this this voiceover over a video because I currently can't do much editing. So, you know, then the basic premise of that is I have to build a new editing computer to handle 4K footage. Basically, the scrubbing rate is just terrible, and that's sort of like if I'm trying to sift through a video to get to a certain point. It just takes forever and it's really long to update, and then I'll try and watch back what I've made and it won't look right, and that's basically the whole thing. It doesn't always work the way I want it to. So yeah, I've been putting off on certain things just because of how much there is still to go. And most of it's 4K. So I wanted to make a better editing computer so that I could edit better and faster, rather than straining and taking forever. So I've just been using the time to record instead, which is why I probably won't be editing this video. I'll just be, posting as is, which is, disappointing. I would rather have video footage for things, but I'm currently waiting for things to arrive in my remote location so that I can get on, really. And that's been it. So that's the opening. I'm also waiting for a new microphone as well, or a new microphone cable, because I don't like the way this one sounds, and nothing I've done so far has managed to make this sound better. So I've been working on fixing up my old microphone, which was the one that I've been using for, I think, everything before August was done with it, and now everything has been done with this one, and I've just been extremely dissatisfied with the sound. So, I've just been trying to go back to the way things were, essentially. Anyway, to stop talking about that rubbish and start talking about the actual games that I've been working on, you already know Dead Space has been posted, so that's one, and I was very pleased with how that turned out, but mostly because of just how long it took to do it, because that was nearly 3 days of just tedious editing with the update on the screen just being so slow. So that's the first one that's coming up in December. The next one that's coming up is Image. Now, you'll be able to see all of these, and they may even change by the time you'll see them in the update post that's on the Patreon page. And the next one is Image, and Image was a gift from the developers of the game Galactic Games, I think. And it's not a great one to talk about in regards of what you should do, because honestly I just don't think it's very good. There's a lot of issues with it in terms of just the basic functionality of the game, which is, I think, possibly the worst thing that you could have a problem with. It really suffers in terms of sequencing. So there are definitely points where I was going into an area where I thought I was supposed to go in there, but because there was no indication of where I was supposed to go. But instead I saw an enemy that was there's an enemy that constantly reappears throughout the game, where it sort of peeks its head around a corner and then disappears when you get close to it. But I went into this room and saw it again, and I was like, oh, maybe I am supposed to be here. And I walked towards it, and it didn't move. And I walked all the way around the back of it to see that it was just like a, cardboard cutout sort of thing. And it felt embarrassing that I'd, seen the game in a way that I shouldn't have seen it. And from that moment on, the horror was just kind of destroyed. The atmosphere wasn't great. The scares weren't great either. I can't remember the sound design being very good. There wasn't any gore, but there didn't need to seem to be any. And, the story was non-existent. There just wasn't one. It was just sort of we have made scary thing, give it a go. And I feel bad that the real people have sent me this to try out, but it feels like such a lackluster experience that I cannot recommend it at all. So that's Image, which isn't great. Doom 3 Resurrection of Evil is already up on there. That was a 1080p video that I could do. Skinwalker Hunt is the next one I wanted to talk about, because that one I've definitely spoken about it before, I think, in previous update videos, but I wanted to have another chat about it because I ended up losing some footage for it in this mayhem that's been the last month or so of just water damage and other things, where I've had to just walk backwards and forwards with data sticks and external hard drives to try and get certain things done, and I ended up I had 187 gigabytes worth of video footage for it. Now I lost 80 of them, which is under half, but still not great. So I've had to go back and record certain parts of it to try and make up for the fact that I lost some of it. But it was a really fantastic game, and I highly recommend it if you like the sort of whole the you versus monster hunting environment. And it's definitely better than Folklore Hunter that I played earlier in the year. But it is single player, so I think that makes a big difference in that way, because the single player experience mostly leaves you alone with it. And whilst it's like it's got that unique feeling where there's isolation, that you know you're alone because there's no other people around, but the trees are all so dense and everything that the environment feels close, which is the best way that I can describe it. I've been trying to figure out a way to say it, but it's kind of hard to describe for me personally. But the game can absolutely scare the living daylights out of you, because the monster can just sort of like be on you and rip you to pieces in a few seconds, which is terrifying, because if you don't hear it coming and you don't know it's there, then you'll just sort of like hear something rip at you, watch your health go down by like 75%. If you don't turn around and shoot it in time, you're dead. And yeah, that can be pretty intimidating coming out of nowhere. Plus things can sort of like layer on themselves, because you have enemies that will come off after you as well. Like you'll get random animals, and it has like RPG features, which is good as well, because like you've got a certain number of bullets that you can use, and you can start shooting random animals throughout the environment. That, I mean, they're all, you know, offensive, so it's self-defense really. And if you start getting like you know, increased stamina regen, health regen, you know, things like that, and a better ability to track the monster, which is cool, and more capacity and all sorts of things like that. And there's items to find throughout the game as well. So it really heavily encourages exploring, which I love, because the maps are really huge. Like, and one of them actually takes place, I think, in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which is really cool. And it's got like radioactive areas, but it doesn't take place at night, that one, which is, you know, I don't know whether I can't really say whether that's a pro or a con for that one, but it's still pretty cool regardless. Yeah, so I really think Skinwalker Hunt was also a gift, by the way, by the developer, and I was so pleased that they sent me that, because I was just thrilled to see it. Because it was made by the same people who made Witch Hunt, and I absolutely loved Witch Hunt. I thought Witch Hunt was great. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it's the best game ever, but like I really did enjoy it. And the thing that one of the most impressive things about Skinwalker Hunt is it actually includes the entire map for Witch Hunt in there as well. So you can hunt the Skinwalker on the map for Witch Hunt, which was already a huge game. And it feels like they've just like taken Witch Hunt and times it by like 4, because there's like 4 times the number of maps that there were in Witch Hunt. So yeah, it's great. Honestly, it's really, really fantastic. I think the game's great. I mean, even though the fact that the enemy doesn't really change throughout, it doesn't really make it any less of a big deal when you go in there and try and fight it, because of how different the environments are, and how there are lots of other creepy little things that go on that you can experience throughout, and it's great. It's honestly, it's one of my favorites that I've played so far. The next one is Welcome to Kowloon, and Welcome to Kowloon is a bit generic in terms of what it's trying to do, where it's just one of these the concept is interesting, because it's sort of like you arrive in the apparently famous town in China called Kowloon, which is essentially like a tower block but spread out over the course of a mile or whatever. It's just like a load of residential buildings apparently squashed into the space of like a square mile, and it's supposed to be just a really densely packed environment, and it definitely comes across as that in the game. And the whole thing is that you're supposed to be trying to find a place to live, and you found this place, and you turn up and you go in, and it turns out that, you know, something doesn't feel right. And there are a lot of moments in the game that were pretty intense, but there was a lot of meandering around as well. It was the thing is, it was a really great series of scripted events in the same way that like From the Darkness was, but like instead of I would say the From the Darkness is just better because it's smaller, because there are lots of points where like it wasn't particularly clear exactly where the game was sending you to go to next. Like the next objective was not particularly clear, whereas like it wasn't really much of a guess when you were playing From the Darkness, because it all takes place inside a single apartment. But Welcome to Kowloon kind of just spreads the thing out a lot more. But it was still, I would say it was like at least on par with From the Darkness in terms of the scares, but it's just the fact that there was much bigger spaces between them, which made it a little harder to, you know, streamline the experience. And it was a bit disappointing because it was roughly the same, and I spent a lot of time meandering, so I imagine it must be shorter than that really, if you don't have a problem getting from A to B. But yeah, that was a pretty cool game. That was definitely interesting. Fears to Fathom Home Alone is the next one. I've already posted a video on that. There's not much point talking about that one. So we'll move on to the next one, which is Deconstructing Horror, Inducing Paranoia. Now, I wanted to do a sort of like a theory video, I guess I'm going to start calling them, because I don't really know what else to call them, just analysis sort of things, where I sort of take apart like a game or a couple of games and talk about a common theme that they have between them. And I wanted to talk about Signal Simulator and the line between paranoia and isolation, because that game does it brilliantly, because there's a lot of things in it that are designed very, very specifically to induce paranoia. Like, there's an absolutely amazingly large environment for you to wander around in, and it's all there seemingly for show, because you don't really know what's, it's too large of an environment for you to ever possibly like take care of effectively, because you just don't know what's going to be out there in the area. And all you really do is just sit down and sort signals, and then when the night turns up, you just go to sleep and wake up the next day and do it again, because it's got a day-night cycle and you sleep in the place. And the thing is, like, the horror comes from just the feeling that something's going to happen, just the constant unending sense that you're not alone, and something is going to happen to you at some point. And honestly, I played the game for like 30 hours the first time that I did it, and I recorded it a little bit extra from a new game perspective, just to like recapture some of the starting points, because I did a lot better the second time actually. And in 30 hours the game only really tried to like do anything once or twice, which is, I know that's like embarrassingly low. But the thing is, the atmosphere didn't change really the whole time. There were points where it almost felt like I was getting used to it, and then it would like do one little thing or whatever, which then made me question whether I was just, there was more to it and I hadn't found it yet. And it does one of the most impressive things that it does, and it does so arbitrarily, because there's seemingly no purpose for it the more that you play the game, is they have door locks, and you can like click on the lock and it locks the door. And the thing is, like, the logical brain will look at this and be like, well, there wouldn't be a reason to lock the door. There needs to be a reason to lock the door, otherwise the game developer wouldn't have bothered putting door locks in there, would they? So, like, there must be a reason for that. Like, everything else around here is designed for a reason. So, like, obviously the door locks are there for a reason. So, something must attack you at some point. So, I would, like, come in after, cleaning the solar panels or whatever, and then close the door, lock the door, and then go into another room and like lock that door as well, and then go to sleep. And it would induce paranoia constantly, as the feeling that like something will happen at some point. I keep on downloading all these alien signals, and like there's a lot of ominous things coming up on the screen, and something is going to happen at some point. Something is coming. And the only thing I think it ever did for me that wasn't like almost like a gimmick sort of event was one time where I was sitting at the desk, and it happened a couple of times actually, but like the first time it happened to me, I was literally just blown away. I was sitting there doing like the normal scanning work, and the room was really quiet because I was just, I was doing the work, and I turned all the sounds off so that I could focus. And there was just the sound of an alien gurgling, like a blah, blah, blah sort of sound. I can't replicate it. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And I jumped straight out the chair and like looked around and looked around the whole building. And I was like, there was something in here. Like that sound was on purpose. There was something in here. And, you just don't feel safe from that point onwards. And it does it every now and then. And it does it at such a long time from one moment to the next that you almost forget about it. And then it does it again. And it just does little things constantly just to keep you on edge, and I love that about it. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, as long as like with probably Babdi and Miasma, who are like different games that cover isolation and stuff, because that's one that I wanted to talk about a lot, was isolation and paranoia. So yeah, there's another one coming up from that in January, where it says Creeping Dread Fatal Frame, but I don't really know if I'm going to be talking about that. It's kind of hard to try and choose a topic when there's so many potential things to talk about. So yeah, I've had a problem with that. The next one up is Father's Day, which is still going to be coming out at some point because it was the only one left over from last year's stuff that I didn't post. So there's that. Then there's 7 more free horror games, which is another Wednesday video. And that one, I've already recorded everything, and I've already gathered the... No, I've recorded all the games, and I've already written about them, but I just haven't posted that yet. I've got to edit and render it, but again, I can't do that at the moment. I've got to voice act it too, and I can't do that at the moment either. So yeah, that's all waiting to be done. But I think I got some more varied one this time because I really wanted to make a bigger variance than last time because it felt like just a lot of them are kind of the same. But the problem is that a lot of horror games are just, kind of the same. Some of them don't really stand out or do anything interesting, and some of the indie ones especially are just sort of like, well, here's something big, and here's my version of it. A lot of them are just plays on PT or something along those lines, where it was sort of disappointing that you already know what's going to happen going in, and they didn't really try to put a lot of a spin on it. So there's that. The next one is Saturday 13th, Fears to Fathom Norwood Hitchhike. I'm working through redoing basically the entire Fears to Fathom series because I'd done 3 of them pretty much on the side channel, and I just want to remove all this stuff to put it onto the main channel instead as proper videos because I don't think people are just going to be able to watch them, and I don't want to make it seem like I haven't covered them because I have, but the original files that I have for the videos are just not very good, so I was like, I might as well just replay it and recover it and stuff because there'll be an updated review anyway, simply because of how they have, in some cases, updated the game. Some of them they haven't. Carson House was still pretty disappointing because of all the extremely tight scripting, which is another thing that I wanted to talk about. In fact, that's actually the scripted events is one thing that I wanted to talk about in terms on for one of the Wednesday videos instead of the Creeping Dread one that I was going to talk about. I really wanted to talk about scripted events and how too much is bad, really. The next one is another Wednesday video, and that's Hellcoming. Me and my friend played through Hellcoming, and it was basically just a cleaning game, really, where you run around and you have to clean things up in this house, and after you've cleaned everything, you can then exorcise the ghost, which is basically the premise of it. But the problem is the ghost attacks you the whole time, and there's lots of different things going on, and these enemies and things, and you have to try and fight back against it, and if both of you get captured, then it's game over, which we did experience at least once. And the game over animation is pretty funny because they all look so silly when they get caught. But the game was genuinely had some pretty scary moments, but it was kind of few and far between. It was just fun, really. I wasn't the actual gameplay. I think it really depends on who you're playing it with, because if you play it as a serious horror game, I don't think you're gonna have a great deal of fun with it. But if you just mess around, then you'll probably be alright. It's a game like that. Next there's Lost from Beyond. Lost from Beyond is one of the ones that you guys voted for. I haven't managed to get on with a lot of the ones that you guys voted for. I've just sort of been, because of various different problems, I've done the ones that I can. So I've started one of the ones that I can do, and because of the way things have been going, I'll be getting around to the other ones when I can. But that's Lost from Beyond is a bit of a mixed bag, I shall say. Because the basic concept is sort of it's supposed to be a cosmic horror game where they use sexual content to try and repulse the player, and in the moment they've only used a very small amount of that to disgust the player in some way, and most of it just didn't feel like it was supposed to be repulsive. Most of it just felt weird. There's only one cutscene where it felt like that was what they were exactly trying to do with it, and it sort of, I was like, okay, yeah, I can see what they're doing here. But then throughout the rest of the game, which I'm now up to chapter 10, and I think there's only 15, 16 chapters, so I'm not far away from the end. But the basic premise of what they were trying to do didn't really seem to come into play for a vast majority of it. It feels like it's just they've created a very mediocre horror game, which is, I don't mean that in an offensive way. It's just that it feels like a very tried and true formula for things. The cosmic horror thing is there with the whole, oh, this town is spooky and there's lots of things going on, Shadow over Innsmouth sort of things. But then there's also like the monsters or whatever in the alternate world where you can travel to, well, I forget what the Lustgar or whatever I think it's called in the game, and it's just the same as like any sort of cave system and stuff that you kind of see in like Scorn or something like that, because that's the way it looks, except it's more pink. And the horror of it is, I guess, supposed to be in this sense of repulsion, but you don't really get it very much. Like it's, I found like there are lots of points. There's RPG elements as well, because you can increase stealth, or you can increase health, and you can increase something else as well. But I've never found any of them helpful because the game's stealth is not great. Enemies follow you forever. Like that, once you get seen, that is it. You're either gonna have to try and find your way to the next area or give up. But they'll put so many enemies in the same area with stealth that is not great. And also have the most confounding part is the one that I'm stuck on at the moment, because I can't seem to progress, because I'm stuck in a place where I'm hiding from every enemy except one who already knows where I am and just keeps on running straight towards me. So how am I supposed to sneak around the other enemies with one of them who already knows where I am and is making a beeline for me? I have to run away from them, otherwise I'll die. But if I run, then everybody else will see me. So it's kind of a conundrum at the moment. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I don't really know what I'm supposed to do to progress in the area anyway. So it's a bit of a frustrating ordeal at the moment. But hopefully that will be over soon, and we can get back to whatever we were doing, which is, I love the environments and stuff, and there's loads of cool things to pick up. But just the moment-to-moment gameplay isn't exactly thrilling. So yeah, that's that one. What's up next? We've got Inside the Backrooms. Not a huge fan of the Backrooms games. I've now played Escape from the Backrooms, Inside the Backrooms, the Backrooms Free Edition. I think I played at some point and wasn't really. I love the concept of the Backrooms. I think the original idea was really cool. But the problem is that most of these games don't really capitalize on any of that stuff. Like the Inside the Backrooms started off very, very promisingly with this really foreboding like area where you were trying to solve a puzzle to progress, and I was like, the atmosphere is great. Like, genuinely impressed with how the atmosphere was. But as time went on, it became more about running away from the monsters, and there are 3 different monsters. One of them can teleport straight to you and insta-kill you, which sucked because the revival mechanic is not great either. So it was just kind of annoying, really. Like it went from sort of being a spooky little thing that I was enjoying to me and my friend just finding it absolutely just really annoying. And we kind of just kept going until we ran out of lives, which was before we finished the chapter. So we were like, yeah, but not a great experience, because the monsters are too aggressive and always hang around in areas where you're trying to work, and you just can't get on with anything. Like it feels like we would need to, like, one of us would need to constantly bait the enemies to a different area and then try and avoid them, which you really can't because they're faster than you. So we didn't really have a great time with that one. There were moments where it could have been scary but weren't, and it was just, it wasn't designed well, which is, it seems to be a common theme with a lot of the Backrooms games. The next one is Fears to Fathom Castle House, which is in February, and there's only a couple more games to talk about, really. I've talked about Castle House before, but I did play it again, and it hadn't really improved since the last time that I played it. It still had a lot of like extremely tight scripting and bugginess and a lot of issues that I really sort of I was very annoyed by, because whilst I genuinely like the concept of the Fears to Fathom game, I find them very frustrating simply because the game dev seems to be going out of their way to like introduce loads of mini games, and there's an entire television show that you can watch on TV, and there's this and there's that, and we've put this in the game, and there's all these other bits and pieces that are like additional but not, they're optional, as opposed to the main game, which it doesn't seem to, like, it's so rough around the edges for a lot of things that it feels mind-blowing that the developer would spend so much time creating an entire first-person shooter wave-based minigame inside the computer on the game, but not refine the game that minigame is in. Like, priorities, I would say, but like, it's, I'm not a game dev, so it's up to their choice, and I've just got to respect it. But yeah, that's the biggest issue I've had with them. Oh, the other one that I was talking about is Ironbark Lookout, because that's the next Fears to Fathom one, and that's the only one I haven't actually already done a video on. And I would say it suffers from basically the same kind of problems. It is pretty cool though. It does have a lot of red herrings, and I quite like that. But it feels like probably the best one I think so far. Actually, Ironbark Lookout. It has a lot of. Although I don't think it's as good as how well Norwood Hitchhike worked when it worked. But Ironbark Lookout is either a close second or an equal, I would say. So yeah, there's that. It'll be on the list, but I think it'll be coming up like in March. So, you know, that will be when that one comes out, because I'm trying to space them out. I don't want to like bombard everyone with Fears to Fathom content. The next one is a mod, and I was really thrilled to rediscover the fact that Amnesia has mods. I forgot that it had custom stories, and I was like, oh, I can talk about Amnesia custom stories. And I played through one called The Great Work, and it was highly recommended on a bunch of lists, and I can see why. It's genuinely very good. I again managed to find several bugs in it by doing things, I guess, not the right way, which led to me having to reload things a lot, just because there were things that required physics and stuff that just didn't work, or certain things that I was anticipating I'd done in the wrong order. But like, instead of being able to just like take things back out or fix any problems if you had done something in the wrong order, the game doesn't really anticipate that at all. If you don't do things exactly the right way, then you might as well just reload and try it again, because you've kind of I soft locked the game at least 4 or 5 times because of, you know, a mistake that I had made that I didn't really anticipate being a mistake. So that was kind of that. There are a lot of there's a lot of jank in it too, but the thing is, it's a mod, really. Like, you can't expect like the same kind of polish from a fully released game as you can for a custom story. So, you know, I didn't really leave disappointed. I still think it was mostly very good. Like, the story was great. They added in new music and new enemies, which ran very, very good. I loved the music that they added in. It was really great. It was, honestly, there were lots of parts where it was like on par with, you know, original Amnesia in terms of how scary it could be, which was, you know, thrilling, because I'd literally take any opportunity I could to like travel back in time and experience Amnesia for the first time again. And that was about as close as I'm probably going to get, although I do look forward to doing some more custom stories in the future. And the best thing about it was actually it was written like it was part of the Amnesia universe, because it had orbs and stuff in it, and it had like similar monsters, and certain things were brought over, and it had its own unique story about a shady circle, and them talking about alchemy and the Philosopher's Stone, and it was really, really interesting, like really good stuff actually. It got a little confusing because I must have missed some diary entries, but like it was good enough really for what it was. That's probably going to be that's a strong recommend from me. That's a very, very good game. I was very thrilled with that one. The next one that's on the list is Mothered, which is a very bizarre game, which I shall say. It's the premise of the game is that you're returning home to see your family, and it's like a disjointed nightmare because your mother looms over you in the darkness, and she's all happy, like smiley, but she moves like a robot and talks like Banjo-Kazooie. And it's one of these things. It's like it really just feels, it's so surreal and abstract to look at that it's really bizarre to like behold. The way that the game works is, or one thing that the game does that I like is that you've got this constant feeling that something's not right, because it's overwhelmingly obvious even, that something's not right. Like the way everybody talks to you, the way that you've never seen your dad, the way that your brother hides in his room every day and then talks to you about how mother is displeased with you, and then your mother keeps on saying odd things, and then it all leads towards like a certain thing, and like that, but it never pays off, which is the most frustrating thing. It's like a psychological horror game, but there's never anything ever at the end of it. Like you keep going, and like it never pays off. It just keeps on building and building until the game ends, which is just, I both love it and hate it at the same time. Like it was very, very impressive. Like but the ending was extremely underwhelming. It literally just started almost immediately again in a new game, and I thought I was supposed to continue, so I kept playing for another couple of days in the game. And it was the same. But other than that, though, it's for the game as short as it is, it was still pretty damn impressive for what we got out of it. Very, very impressed. Talking of games that are impressive, I've got 2 more to talk about that I am saving for, like, the thing is, I want to still try and do a Halloween. I really do. Because I'm not disappointed with what we did this year, or shall I say last year now. But this, like, 2023's Halloween was a little lackluster for me. I wanted more. I wanted to be able to deliver more. And my idea at the moment is to have it in the cards, but not say that I have it in the cards. That way, if I realize at a certain point that I'm not going to be able to do it, I can just add all the videos that I haven't made into the normal lineup, and then that will just be it. You know, I want to work towards it without really working towards it. And I've got 2 games already, because I've already talked about loads and loads of things, and I've got stuff worked up all the way until February at the moment, potentially March if you include like Ironbark. Okay. Oh wait, there's one more I wanted to talk about as well. I played a Doom version of PT, and I wanted to include Doom because I feel bad for almost ditching the what was the one I was supposed to be doing? City of the Damned, because I need to redo that, but I haven't had the time to redo that. Instead, I ended up playing a version of Doom. PT Doom, which was just like a version of PT in Doom, and it was pretty good, really. It was for the technology that Doom shows. Like you can get away with a lot of it in there, and it was pretty damn entertaining. And I wanted to just cover it anyway as a just a random Wednesday video because I thought it'd be cool. And so yeah, that's one I wanted to talk about. That's but like honestly, that's probably best if you want to see that, then it's probably best to actually watch the video for that one because there's not much to show otherwise. So there's that. Moving on, the 2 that I've been holding for a potential Halloween are Burnhouse Lane and Dark Pictures Devil in Me. And I want to talk about Devil in Me first because it's the less interesting of the 2, really. It's basically like Until Dawn, in case you don't know the Dark Pictures series. And I would say honestly it's probably the best one since Until Dawn, because none of them are as good as Until Dawn, unfortunately. But it manages to do a pretty decent job of building things up, but it does kind of fall apart near the end because it feels like there's an almost perfect escalation all the way up to what feels like it should be a finale, but then the game goes on for another hour. So it's kind of a little lackluster in certain places, but the characters are mostly pretty good. There are loads of new people in them that I haven't seen before, because there's a lot of returning actors you'll get throughout the series. But there was quite a few new people in this one. I love the concept of it actually being based on the H.H. Holmes murder house, and H.H. Holmes was a real life, outside of the game, famous American serial killer. In fact, as they've referred to him in the game, the America's first serial killer. And basically the guy would just made an entire hotel and then would just lure people in and then murder them. And that's what happens sort of in the game, where you're playing as a bunch of people trying to escape this now modernized version of the murder castle, as they refer to it. And I think it was pretty good. A lot of people criticized it quite heavily for being buggy, and it does have some definite bugs that you can't help but notice. But besides that, the experience was actually pretty good. It does have some of the more gory deaths that I've seen, with one of them being really disturbing. That just, wow, that some of them kind of come out of nowhere as well. There's one thing that I don't like about it is there are some deaths that feel kind of cheap and unavoidable, where you doesn't really feel like there was an option that you could have foresaw. But other than that, it's probably the best one that I think they've had since Until Dawn. One of the more frustrating elements of it, though, is that when people comment on my videos about them, they're always saying like, oh, they're good, but they're just interactive movies. I really wish there was more gameplay and stuff in them. And yeah, it seems like they've been taking that criticism to heart, because they've really tried their best to put gameplay into it, but I wouldn't say any of it was successful, because a lot of it feels kind of forced, like push X to shimmy here and then like push this box and climb up that, and there are several moments of the game that are nothing but just walking from one area to the next with a bunch of obstacles in the way. It feels like, and it's a bit of a letdown in that regard. But again, like, you know, the game has a lot of really good highs and then some really mediocre lows. So yeah, that's the one of the ones I wanted to talk about. And the next one is Burnhouse Lane. And let me sit up for this one. Out of all the stuff that I've played so far, Burnhouse Lane is easily my favourite. I was really not anticipating it being as interesting or as like an emotional of an adventure as it is, and it's one of those adventure games that also does a fantastic job of being a horror game. It's not necessarily scary, but like not all horror games need to be like scarefests, as I've said before. But the basic premise is you play as someone who's got lung cancer, and the game starts really sadly with like this failed suicide, and then they get a phone call and they're like, we need you to go to the countryside and look after this old man with dementia. And the whole start of the game feels like an absolute bummer. It really is just really depressing to start off with, because you already know this person has like nothing to live for and they're going to die, because like their illness has been diagnosed as terminal. And you go to the house and you start looking after them, and there's this depressing feeling that hangs over the game for quite a while until you discover Burnhouse Lane, where you sort of travel down this, you know, Alice in Wonderland style rabbit hole that takes you through like, you know, a Silent Hill nightmare until you arrive in Burnhouse Lane, where you meet a giant cat that tells you that you have a chance to save your life if you do these tasks. And I'm still writing the review for this one, but I wanted to hold off on it because I have a lot to talk about for these two specific games. So the longer that I, you know, take to do them, the better I think they'll be. So the game is like, it has a lot of disturbing content in it in regards to like things that would happen in real life. There's a lot of like really bizarre things that happen too, because it like blends the harrowing actions of people in the real world next to the dreamlike horror of like, you know, sort of like the Silent Hill Otherworld, that sort of stuff. And it does a great job. Like it never properly becomes, you know, scary, I would say, but like there are loads of really intense moments, and there's a lot of gore in it that you can just be like, oh god, you know. The story is the best. It's really like one of the best stories that I think I've experienced in any of the horror games that I've played, in terms of like the highs and lows, and it really toys with you emotionally, and it did it was really, really good. Highly recommend Burnhouse Lane if you like, you know, horror adventure games. So yeah, that's one that I'm going to be doing a review on at some point, and hopefully it will be either in the Halloween lineup or you'll see it some other time throughout the list. I'll update the thing to look at it, so you know, you guys can check it out on Patreon. In fact, you don't even need to be on Patreon to look at the full list, and I've pretty much talked about everything here anyway. So there you go. And that's all I really had to talk about today. I've got a lot to really get on. I'm still waiting for these computer parts and microphone bits to turn up so I can get back to work. In the meantime, I guess I'll be doing some more recording, and I'll see you next time.